In the last video, we found the total cost of a customer and the customer margin. So in this video, we're going to do the same thing, but use those same activity rates and those cost pools to find the total cost of the two products sold by Baxter, the Sure Start battery and the Long Life battery. And then we're going to take that a step further to find what each product's margin is. So we're using the same table here with the activity rates we had before. So we first need to look at some information. So the Sure Start battery, it says that this requires no new design resources. 800,000 batteries were ordered in total overall, with 4,000 separate orders from several customers. And each Sure Start requires 36 minutes of machine time for a total of 480,000 machine hours. The Long Life battery requires new design resources. 400,000 batteries were ordered with 6,000 separate orders. 4,000 custom designs were prepared, and each Long Life requires 48 minutes of machine time for a total of 320,000 machine hours. So what we want to do is now we have all that information for the Sure Start and the Long Life. So we want to take that along with these activity rates to figure out how much cost to assign to each of these batteries from each of the cost pools. So one thing you'll notice is that we do not have the customer relations cost pool included when assigning overhead to products. And the reason for that is because the activity measure for customer relations is number of customers. So when we're calculating the cost of a product itself, though, we're not looking at customer. The customer relations cost is only included when we're finding customer cost and customer margin. Here we're only concerned with the two products. So recall that the customer orders cost pool, its activity rate is $452 per customer order. The design changes activity rate is $760 per design change. And the order size cost pool, its activity rate is $6.50 per machine hour. So we can take all that and figure out how much cost to assign to each. So the number of orders overall for the Sure Start battery, that was 4,000 orders. There were no new designs for this battery, so the number of designs is 0. And a total of 480,000 machine hours were used to make all of those Sure Start batteries for this period. So there's 480,000 machine hours. So we're going to figure out how much overhead costs to assign here. So the customer orders cost pool, how much of that 4.52 million will we assign to the Sure Start battery? Well, the activity rate is $452 per customer order, and there were 4,000 orders made of this battery. So we're going to take the 4,000 orders times 452. That's total customer order overhead of 1.08 million that we'll assign to the Sure Start battery. The design changes activity rate is $760 per design change, but there were no design changes for this battery, so that's 0. So if we take 0 here times the $760 per design change, that gives us 0. I'm just going to put 0 in there. This thing's not cooperating. Okay, so nothing, because we had no new designs, so there's no cost incurred in terms of design change overhead here. Order size, there was, though. The total overhead cost, non-manufacturing, manufacturing overhead cost that is incurred for each machine hour is about $6.50, and there were 480,000 machine hours used to produce all of the Sure Starts for the period. So we're going to take the 480,000 machine hours, multiply that by $6.50 per machine hour cost there. Okay, there we go. So we take 480,000 machine hours times $6.50 per machine hour. That gives us $3.12 million of overhead, non-manufacturing and manufacturing overhead to assign to the Sure Start product from the order size cost pool that has $5.2 million of overhead in it. So to put that into perspective, this Sure Start product, it is being assigned $3.12 million of the $5.2 million of overhead in the order size cost pool. So we're going to do the same for the Long Life battery So it cost $452 per customer order, and there were 6,000 orders made of the long life battery. So we're going to take 6,000 orders times $450 per order. So that's $2.712 million of overhead from the customer order cost pool to assign to the long life battery. This product actually had design changes. There were 4,000 custom designs for this battery, and each design change costs about $760 in terms of overhead. So we'll take those 4,000 designs times $760 per design change to give us $3.04 million that we'll assign to the long life product line. And then lastly, order size. So it costs $6.50 of overhead per machine hour. We used 320,000 machine hours to make all the long life batteries this period. So to figure out how much overhead to assign from that cost pool to this product, we're going to multiply these total machine hours by the $6.50 per machine hour. So we're going to end up assigning 2.08 million of the 5.2 million in the order size cost pool to the long life battery product line. So overall, we can see here that it cost us about $4.928 million in manufacturing and non-manufacturing overhead to produce the Sure Start batteries this period, and it cost us about $7.832 million in manufacturing, non-manufacturing overhead to produce the long life battery here. Okay, so we're going to now take that information to find out actually, okay, if we know what each of these products cost us in terms of overhead, what about the product margin? So remember, to find a margin, customer or product, we need to know the sales data and the direct cost data along with the overhead data, which we just found here. So let's go ahead and extend that discussion and find the product margin. So remember, we said to find customer margin, we need sales data and direct cost data, and same goes for product margin. So here they give us the sales generated by both the Sure Start battery and the long life battery. So we generated $31.3 million of sales from the Sure Start battery and $18.7 million of sales from the long life battery, for a total sales of $50 million. And we can see that sales of $50 million matches up with the total sales we have on our original income statement. And then they give us the direct materials, direct labor, and shipping costs that we incurred for each product. So it cost us $9 million and $6 million in direct materials for the Sure Start and the long life battery, $7 million and $5 million of direct labor for the Sure Start and long life, and finally we spent $2 million and $1 million on shipping costs for the long life and the Sure Start. But to find out what each product's margin is, we need to take the sales data and direct cost data, which I've copied down below here, and we will add to that the overhead cost assignments that we just figured out from the previous sheet here. We found out how much overhead to assign to each product from each cost pool. So we assigned $1.808 million of overhead to the Sure Start product from the customer order cost pool, and from that cost pool we assigned $2.712 million of overhead to the long life product. There was no design change overhead cost to assign to the Sure Start battery, but we assigned $3.04 million of manufacturing and non-manufacturing overhead to the long life battery from the design change cost pool. And then lastly, we assigned $3.12 million of overhead to the Sure Start product from the order size cost pool, and $2.08 million of overhead to the long life product from the order size cost pool. So now we have enough to figure out what the total cost is of each product. The total cost of the Sure Start includes direct materials, direct labor, and shipping costs, and all these overhead costs we assigned. So in total, the Sure Start battery cost us $22,928,000. And we generated $31.3 million of sales, so the $31.3 million of sales minus all these costs leaves us with a product margin of $8,372,000. The long life battery, it generated $18.7 million in sales, but if we add together all of its costs, the long life battery cost us $19.832 million for the period. But it only generated $18.7 million of sales. So actually, this is a negative product margin. we have negative $1,132,000 of product margin from the long life product, or the long life battery. So when we add the two product margins together, we can find the overall product margin. So the overall product margin here is at least in the green. It's 7.24 million. But here we see with ABC costing that the one product is profitable where the other one doesn't quite look so. So the overall profit generated from selling both batteries is over $7 million, but when we look at each product margin on its own, we can see that the Sure Start has a pretty healthy margin where the long life is in the red here. So that is how to not only calculate the cost of a company's different products based on the activities consumed or used by each product, but also how to take that assignment of overhead and combine it with the other costs incurred or traced to each product to find each product's margin. So I'm going to pause here and we're going to do one last video to compare the product margins we just found under ABC costing here to the product margins that we would find under traditional costing.